Capitol Hill. Our senior congressional correspondent, Dana Bash, is standing by with the ranking Republican on this subcommittee. It's the House Energy and Commerce Committee's subcommittee on oversight and investigations. The ranking Republican is Michael Burgess of Texas. Dana, take it away.
That's right. We do have Congressman Burgess here. Thank you very much for stopping and talking to us. So first, I just want to get your impressions of what you saw so far from the opening statements of your colleagues. What struck me is that some of you and your fellow Republicans seem to be just as angry at BP about what you thought were cutting corners as maybe some of the Democrats.
Well, we heard from the executives from other oil companies earlier this week that they wouldn't have done things the way BP did. So legitimate questions. Why were they doing things that way? Were they cutting corners? Were they sacrificing safety and putting it ahead of profit, or putting profit ahead of safety? And, right now we've got this terrible problem going on down there. The entire livelihood of the Gulf is in danger because they can't fish. Now they may be on a moratorium where they can't drill, and those poor folks are getting hit with a double whammy.
Well, you asked these questions, but you've also been privy to hundreds, maybe thousands of documents that could answer those questions. What do you think? Were they cutting corners? Were they putting at risk safety to make money?
I think the memo that was put out by the committee, the 5 questions that were asked that Chairman Waxman alluded to, are actually right on target. Now, maybe they didn't need all the centralizers, and there was the concern about you get the rod stuck and it's going to be better to push cement through, but then you've got to check, and they didn't check. They had the people there to check, and they sent them home, and they proceeded anyway. Those are the kinds of things that are really just nettlesome questions. And then when we heard from the 2 widows a week and a half ago, the 2 ladies who lost their husbands on the rig, and they said they went through safety drill after safety drill. Safety was job 1, and then they would get emails and telephone calls from their husbands that corners were being cut and safety was being sacrificed.
So give us a sneak preview. We're going to go into Q&A in about 15 minutes when you come back into session. What's going to be your question for Tony Hayward?
Well, to try to establish that line of, was the CEO briefed on some of the problems they were having with the well? It was a difficult well. This wasn't something that happened in the last 20 seconds of its existence. This had been going on for days or even weeks beforehand. Was he being briefed? What were his directives as a result of those briefings? Did he direct them to, in fact, proceed with all dispatch, or did he direct them back safely?
Think you're going to get the answers?
We'll see.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Congressman Michael Burgess. As you said, the ranking Republican on this subcommittee, and we're going to hear from this congressman and many others get their chance to actually ask Tony Hayward questions, again, probably in about 15 minutes when they go back into session, John.
And, Dana, if you have a chance, before the congressman gets away, I'd like to ask him, does he agree with his colleague from Texas, Joe Barton, who called the $20 billion a shakedown and a slush fund created by the Obama White House? Does he agree with that?
Good question. The question is, do you agree with your colleague, Congressman Barton, that the $20 billion fund, the escrow fund, is effectively just a slush fund?
Well, we have known for some time that BP has, as Mr. Hayward said, BP was committed to paying for their responsibility in the cleanup, and I think that's important. I think it's important to have a floor established for the people in the Gulf Coast. There are guys out there taking out loans with only their names as a signature, and as a small business person, I can tell you there's nothing more uncomfortable than taking out an operational loan and not knowing if your business is going to be around to pay for it. Well, now we'll have BP's signature on that loan as well, and I think that provides some stability for the folks back in the Gulf who are going to need it.
So you disagree with your colleague?
Well, the concept or the appearance of having the Attorney General across the table, I'll admit, that is troublesome. I mean, look what this administration already has a history. When they took over GM and they said you have to fire Mr. Wagner, I was uncomfortable with that. So this administration does, unfortunately, have a history of overreaching into private business, and I think you were hearing Mr. Barton's frustration with that.
But in this case, thumbs up on the $20 billion fund.
Well, we knew all along that BP was going to have, they have never questioned the fact that their liability was not capped at $75 million. They've never questioned that they would be responsible for paying their share of the cleanup and restoring people in the Gulf. So that was something that they had consented to all along. The structure of it and how it came about down at the White House, no one asked me about that beforehand. I don't know if I'd be quite as strong as Mr. Barton, but I agree with him that it was unseemly to have the Attorney General perhaps holding criminal papers in his hand asking for them to sign on the line.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
So, John, you heard the answer there. Maybe the method to getting it not necessarily appropriate in his view, but the end result is something that they need. John.
Dana Bash for us on Capitol Hill. And before we take a quick break, Robert